Hey, so if you, I apologize, but one of the things I was going to explain was that we did order the books and they were on their way, and Doug just walked in with the books, so we will be delivering the books to you post haste. So thank you very much for this. So it is now 12:59. One of the things I love about the book chats is the cohesiveness and the collaboration and the ideas that come out of it. This will be recorded, and we're recording it to keep in our repository, but also we do go back and look at these things to basically try to put your thought process along with some of the workshops that will be happening. So we've got the books, very excited. What we're going to do is we're going to get that put together and we'll make sure that you'll have these books this week, even if I have to walk and deliver them to you personally. So without further ado, we're going to pass it over to Professor William Visher.
All right, thank you. So having the books delivered just now, that's called timing, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, all right. Since it's one, we'll go ahead and get started. I do want to be respectful of your time. Obviously, the book that we're doing is Pedagogy of Kindness. And my hope for this book club is for us to have a shift in our mindset regarding kindness. See what I did there? Connected it to the last book we did. So anyway, we will get started, and let me just share the first slide. Let's talk about who Catherine J. Denial is. She's a professor. She's at Knox College. And I'm not going to read all of that to you, but I do like to sort of give the bona fides of the people that we are studying. But again, this PowerPoint will be available to you after this session. The why. Why did she write this book? And in her own words, I hope I can, yes. I'm just going to read this to you because these are her words. She wrote this book in response to a culture of higher education that emphasizes rigor, authority, and suspicion over compassion, equity. I don't know if we can use that word, but if we can't, ignore it, and authentic teaching relationships. She argues that the academy's traditional systems foster competition, punishment, and a deficit view of students. Denial wants to order, she wanted to offer both a critique and a roadmap for building a more humane, just, and effective learning environment, one where kindness is central to all pedagogical decision. Her personal teaching experiences, commitment to justice, and recognition of the struggles faced by both students and faculty inspired her to clarify the practice of kindness, not as mere niceness, as someone has pointed out already, but as an active, justice-oriented stance that requires self-reflection, care, and honest connection. So that's why she wrote this book. Moving on. And let's talk about what kindness is, some of the synonyms, and some of the antonyms to kind of jog our thinking. Kindness is the quality of being friendly, generous, and considerate, often involving helpful or charitable acts performed without expectation of reward. Some synonyms for kindness include benevolence, compassion, and generosity, while antonyms include cruelty, malice, and harshness, which would be toward ourselves and obviously toward our students. All right, you all received, I made a copy of the book that I was reading, and so you've already kind of seen some of my underlines. Um, Pedagogy of Kindness, session one, introduction. In the introduction on page one, she to me came in hot. The first thing that I underlined, which you probably saw, was academia is not by and large a kind place, which I have highlighted here. What, and you can start out with that, or you can start out with some of your own thoughts. Let me just throw that out there, and we can talk about that. And let me issue a caveat as well. when we're talking about these issues, let's expand out to other places that we have been. I don't want us to necessarily think we're talking about Chat State all the time. We've all been in other places, other schools, other systems. So, what do you think about that statement about it not being a kind place? Agree or disagree? What say you? Homisha?
So when I initially read the first introduction, it talked about it not being a kind place and just reflecting on what not makes it kind um, in the workplace. And so when I first started teaching here 10 years ago, you take over another professor's shell and teach from them until you kind of learn, your way, and then you tweak it as you go. And the syllabus were not kind, as per se, as they talk in here, when it comes to lateness, when it comes to students turning in work. Sometimes when students come to us, just the way the policies were written in the syllabus were just not kind. And so that was one example that I noticed when I first started 10 years ago. And I was like, I don't know if I like this. And so they were just like, well, you can change it based off, what you would like to do. So, and so I changed the policies, in my area, in my classes where students can turn in uh late not late work. Students can contact me before the due date,
Mm-hmm.
and I can extend the assignment to the end of the semester, because we're not it's not a heart institute, like it's not life and death here. So they can, as much as we want to think that we, work at a hospital and the heart is pumping and we got to get that transplant, that's just not the case here. So I changed it where students can contact me before the due date for any reason.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that they just was tired that week and just didn't feel like turning it in. But long as you contact me before the due date and
Mm-hmm.
time, I will extend it,
Okay.
to the end of the semester. Now, if you contact me after the due date, now I can't decipher what's more important. I can't decipher whether COVID or whether, your toothbrush didn't work. I can't kind of decipher what's an emergency, because emergencies just depends on what the person is and it's subjective. But long as you contact me before the due date for any reason, I'm going to extend the assignment for you. But if you contact me afterward, I don't, And so, but before then, it was kind of like, I don't accept late work, no late work. And then if you do turn it in, it's 50% reduction in points. It was just all type of things that I just felt just wasn't kind, especially since we all have life emergencies. We all have life emergencies. We all have things going on in our life that affect, what we have going on.
Right.
But that was one of the things that I experienced when I first started.
And there is, it's not here yet. Chapter 2, there's an entire chapter that deals with kindness in the syllabus. So I think you may have gotten that from the introduction, which is good. I think she kind of did an overview. But yeah, there is an entire chapter on kindness and the syllabus and kindness and assessment, which you will see when you get your book. Anybody else want to piggyback off of that, the introduction or academia not being kind, or anything in the introduction? The next one that I underlined and looked at was, I look back on my lack of compassion now and wince. That is actually on page 3, and it's underlined, I think, um, in the section that you all got. Anybody, did that resonate with anybody else? Or have you all been kind all of your teaching careers? Tracy?
So this is kind of where I have the imposter syndrome. because, and Clemisha, not that she has the imposter syndrome, but we come from similar backgrounds. We come from industry. We are
Okay.
not education majors. We've not been trained. If we got anything within our divisions, if it like Clemisha said, you kind of took over what somebody else had, and they expect that you've got some experience in your background. Which luckily I had a lot of training. But so my perspective on a lot of this I can get as a, like I said, the big imposter. I'm not from education. I've always wondered, what are my gaps that I'm not even aware of, and do is it different from coming as far as compassion or understanding what you give your students, because we come from a working background and training, and it's like our syllabus in engineering, we don't have anything about turning stuff in late. We put a link to the college policies, but we just have topics covered. Here's how it's weighted. Here's our outcomes. Here's our, you know, and it's just different for us. And I really don't know what the gap is that I have. I think there's a gap there, but I haven't been thrown out yet, so I guess I'm okay.
Yeah.
So you think it's different coming from that background versus a teaching background?
Yeah,
Yes.
especially since she talks about how it's like, ooh, the students are like the enemy and they all cheat. And I'm the only advice that was given to me by another faculty was assume students know nothing. That was it.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
and I think
interesting.
yeah, and I think there is a difference when it comes from people who do come from industry versus education, when it comes to their mentality. Because even when we have conversations about AI and the use of it, most of people who are academia, for the most part, would say no, they can't use that, they shouldn't use that, they have to know all this stuff, and uh my subject matter is very important, they have to need this to survive. And and they have that type of stance when they're communicating. And so, from industry, we're kind of like, well, you have to use it because it's going to shorten time. And so I don't want you spending an hour and 30 minutes on something where you can use an assistant, and that's 5 minutes of work. And so we want you to use things that's going to help pay the bills, per se, instead of not using the tools at hand. And so I think that's what comes the difference between education. I think academia is just more firm. I don't want to call it unkind, but just they're very firm in their thinking, their stance.
Could it be the difference between um, divisions or sections that are more geared toward working with your hands versus being more cerebral? That's kind of maybe what I'm hearing or sensing.
Mm.
Does that question make sense? For example, I mean, I guess in TCAT or somewhere else, you wouldn't, I mean, they can't really use um, AI. Nicholas, I see your hand. You want to chime in?
Yeah, hey guys. Sorry, I'm like running around, so I didn't want to make anyone dizzy. I have my camera off, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to pick up on what everyone said. Yeah, I mean, I get like, I think, yeah, the distinction between like the university and the community college system, I think there's definitely varying degrees of hostility, probably more competitiveness between colleagues in that kind of tenure system at the university level, which bleeds out. I mean, these are old institutions, so you've got these syllabus, that everyone has to abide by, and that's the law because it's a different kind of student. But like, you mentioned TCAT. I was like, yeah, we're different. I'm like, the old school idea of a university was, yeah, I mean, it was meant to basically weed out those who weren't fit for whatever an intellectual or cerebral life was was called, but I mean, that's not the case today. And so I was thinking about the kindness and compassion and all that. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I think in my experience, and maybe other people will see, I think so much of it has to do, I think, with ego, like these ideas that, you know, the student is an enemy, or I assume that the student will cheat. Like, I love that idea that, like, yeah, the student just assume they don't know anything. I think that's one of the
Yeah.
kindest ways to approach it. I've had so many students, and I won't name names. I know we're being recorded and all that, you know, but in my experience, I've had students come to me and tell me stories about professors. And I mean, one of the comments I get the most is like, oh, they're like, they're mad that we don't know it. And we're like, how are we supposed to know it? That's why we're taking the
Right.
class. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I'm like, so I don't know. I think for me, I just thought I'd throw it out there. I think that so much of that hostility is tied to ego, within, at least in the teaching world, I think. Yeah. Anyway, my 2 cents.
Yeah, that phrase resonated with me too. Don't assume that they know what they might not know. Sheena, I saw a hand. I see two hands for Sheena. You're muted, Sheena, if you're talking.
Hey, sorry.
That's okay.
I also didn't mean to raise my hand twice. I was just gonna say when he spoke that about ego, the biggest thing that I pulled from the introduction was about teaching with grace, and then also she said specifically dialogue demands vulnerability, which is huge. Like he said, you know, you got to be vulnerable. You got to be able to say you don't know and let the students know, you know, it's okay if you don't know, because sometimes I don't know too. We all have things that we don't know. And I know that, you know, even in university, it's more strict. And I think it's harder to dialogue. I think at the community college, it's easier maybe because we're more personable with them. So
Mhm.
maybe that helps us at the community college level. But definitely, we've got to be vulnerable and teach with grace. I definitely agree with Denial about that.
Somebody else on the introduction. I remember being admonished after COVID or immediately following all of that to make sure to extend more grace because of what the students were going through and still might be going through, just to be gracious to them. So that has always sort of rang in my head. Gonna move on. Since we're only on slide 5. And we can always circle back around to some of this as well. So this focuses, or we begin to focus more on chapter 1, kindness toward the self. And kindness to self, or self-compassion, is the practice of treating yourself with the same warmth, care, and understanding you would offer to a dear friend, especially during times of suffering, failure, or inadequacy. It involves 3 core components: self-kindness, being gentle and supportive instead of self-critical; common humanity, recognizing that struggles are a part of the universal human experience, or what Sheena was just talking about. I had Grace running around in my head. And mindfulness, observing difficult thoughts and feelings without judgment. Cultivating self-kindness enhances emotional well-being, builds resilience, improves physical health, and fosters more fulfilling relationships. And what this is kind of reminding me of was what Tracy and Clomisha talked about with regard to um, imposter syndrome. And you said you kind of still dealt with that. Is that sort of not treating yourself with kindness, or does that present issues to you or with you, or something that you need to deal with or get over in light of pedagogy of kindness? Either one of you can answer that.
Again, I kind of think it's from the point of by not having that formal education in education. What out there am I missing? And when am I going to get tripped up by it? So, you know, I've been here for 12 years. I feel pretty good about what I do. And I love working with my students and get to know them very well. But just like I've heard so many people, it took me a while to figure out what is pedagogy. And I'd look up the definition. I go, okay, I think it's this. And then 3 or 4 months later, it'd come up in a conversation. I went, is that really what I've interpreted it to be? And even I did it today. I had to look it up again just to make sure, because it's so simple, but it's so different, I think, person to person. And part of wondering, did I miss something? Am I really meeting the definition of pedagogy for my discipline, for my concentration, for my students who will become graduates? I don't
And
want to shorten them.
it gets thrown around a lot in our circles. Nancy?
Yeah, I'm.
Sure.
Pardon me. I think in the last couple semesters, I've started to beat myself up a lot.
Really?
And I need to get over that shit. I mean, stuff. And I don't know how to do that. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to look to be in this chapter, or the book, I mean, so that I can maybe not beat myself up too much. That is all.
Well, I hope it helps. There's a lot of really good um, things in here that we can avail ourselves of. But Tracy?
I'm like, Sheena, I'm like, how did my hand get up there twice? And I'm like, Nancy, oh my God, no.
Oh, yes.
I so admire you. There's so many things I've taken from you. I'm like going, you've got your doctorate, you've done all this stuff, you've done work with the prisoners and everything else, and I'm like going, no, if you're having thoughts about, not quite meeting something, where the heck am I? I think you're awesome. So just get rid of that
Okay.
other stuff.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
I just, yeah. Thanks.
Mhm.
I needed that.
Sometimes others can recognize things that we don't always. So thanks for the affirmation, Tracy and Nancy. Yeah, hopefully this book and this chapter did help some. Nicholas, Dr. Mancito?
Nick is fine. Yeah,
Nick,
is
okay.
fine. Yeah, I was just thinking this idea of like, I mean, I think all of us suffer from imposter syndrome, but I think we can look at that through like a positive light. I mean, everyone who's here today obviously cares extra. That's why you're here. And I mean, most of us know each other, so I think we're familiar with everyone's ethic and how bright and sweet and beautiful everyone in the group is. But I kind of look at that stuff sometimes too. I mean, I suffer from it too, but I look at it as it's good though. The suffering is not good, but the fact that there is suffering is good, because that only comes, at least for me, that only comes from self-reflection. You can only, if you're not self-reflecting, you're not thinking about your teaching or pedagogy, which I feel is just a fancy term universities make up to distinguish between, the intellectual and the not. I mean, it's really just like how you teach. I think accepting the fact that, like, yeah, I'm having these thoughts, or I might have this, but this is a good thing because I actually care enough to be vulnerable with myself or look at myself in that light. So I think it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. I think that's a good sign, even though it is not a pleasurable state to be in.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope, Josh Tucker.
Hey, so I've been turning my camera on and off. It's Hamilton County fall break in here, and I don't know how many of these small children in here are clothed running back and forth through here. So I'll keep this camera on and off. But one, I wanted to turn my camera on to nod when everybody was saying how great Nancy is, because I 100% agree. with that, but also too, um, this thing that Berkman notes in chapter one about sort of the fictional nature of the parable of the rocks in the jar that he talks about and how fictional it is. One of the things that my wife keeps telling me that never penetrates my skull because it's so thick, but she continues to do it because she's a great partner, is that she reminds me that we have a lot of balls in the air and some of them are glass and some of them aren't. And you got to figure out which of those balls are glass, the ones that are precious to you, and which of those balls are rubber, right? Because you're going to drop one and it's going to happen, like Berkman says. And so, which of those balls that you keep in the air are glass, and which of those balls are rubber? And I think that's part of the self care that he's talking about in here.
Mhm.
We have to, that's true. We do have too many things. And looking at who's here, I know that there are many of you that do lots of different things. And we have to take care of ourselves. Okay, I'm going to slide over one. Chapter one, Duna.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to share my story. I grew up with the parents who taught me to think of always others. But I've learned here is this a really important thing is the care you to myself is that is true kindness. Um, so that I want to share let me just to the um, I've learned that true kindness is being the honest and fair, or also setting the healthy boundaries. Is just take care of myself and not just the others. Also, I learned pedagogy teaching style of kindness means believe in people. Student actually treat student with dignity and helping everyone grow up. So that is the reason I just I would like to I really like this book because I'm not thinking about myself a lot. Always I just think of others so much because of my culture. But thank you for just sharing this book with me. Yeah, it was a real great book. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Tomisha.
All right. So another thing that I have experienced in my tenure of being here, of treating yourself kind, is including other people in on projects. I think oftentimes, like when you first start out, you're trying to get tenure, you're trying to be great, and you're doing so many things that you don't include other people. You want to make others feel as if you know the subject matter, as if you're a subject matter expert. And so you don't want to rely on others heavily because they may see that as negative. But I do feel as time has grown that people do their best work when they partner and collaborate with other people to kind of get their ideas, what their thoughts are of. I've been with many of you all in teaching, and we piggyback off each other. You know, what are you doing in your class? Oh, you're doing that in your class? Okay, let me try that in my class. Let's see. And so over time, I believe that's part of treating yourself well with kindness, of understanding that you don't know it all and it's okay to get help, and you all work on a group on a project, and that just it takes the pressure off you so much and your stress level decreases. And I think that has helped um over time working in academia. Is doing more project based work, seeing what other people are doing and implementing that and not recreating the wheel. And that's a form of self-care.
True.
Mhm.
On this slide, I didn't want to put something about each page, but as you look through pages 16 through, I guess, the end, I wondered if you all had specific places that you had marked on any of these pages that you wanted to bring out? Tracy?
So on page 17, and I keep reading this sentence and I'm trying to digest it, and I'd love for the rest of you to help me with this because it really stood out. At the top of page 17, and I'm reading off the Google book, it says, our access to care, even self care, is knowingly limited by people who understand their privileges to be dependent upon denying others the material, emotional, social, and spiritual space they need. And I'm trying to look at it from, myself. Is it myself understanding my privilege to be dependent upon denying others the material? Or is this care for other, because it says care and then even self care. And I'd love to know what other people think of this sentence.
The one word that comes to my mind is sabotage, and I don't know why. Or haters, or people that don't want you to realize or recognize what you might need. Sheena?
Hey,
Hey,
so I kind of think that this goes, I noticed this too, Tracy. And my first thought whenever I saw that sentence, and this comes before the social, what'd she call it? The social identity reflection. My first thought whenever I saw that was thinking, one time a few years ago, I was talking with a girlfriend about something that I didn't see or understand. And she told me the reason that you don't see it is because it doesn't affect you. Um, and so then we got in real deep about that. Um, and it gave me a better understanding. I'll just say it was with a girlfriend of a different race. And that was something that had never really crossed my mind, I guess, the way that she worded it and then the way that we kind of, picked it apart. Um, so my thoughts on that was that, sometimes what we need, other people have so easily to them, or people that have access to it or control our access to it don't see that we have the need or even understand it.
would that be kind of like Nancy's comment about not seeing her value, but other people seeing it?
I could see that. Yeah, I think that we all have that problem. We definitely, I mean, look at other people and, praise them and admire them, but do not admire ourselves for the same types of greatness.
Not being kind to ourselves.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. Josh?
I had I had a conversation with a female colleague one time, and we were talking about how students addressed each of us in the classroom. And I did not particularly have a preference on whether students used my title or didn't use my title. And she mentioned that she felt like if students did not use her title, that the level of respect in her classroom was significantly different to her, which made me change my position on that because it seemed like when we were in the classroom, because of our different sexes, she had the belief that we had different levels of respect as we entered into the classroom and how students viewed us. So that's what I thought of when I saw that particular excerpt.
Rebecca? Is that a new hand or?
Yes. Hey.
Oh, okay.
So I agree with everything that's been said, kind of on the socio-political level of thinking about not fully understanding other how different factors play into things. I also see it kind of on a personal level too when thinking about self-care and thinking about creating that space for yourself that you might not have created before and kind of taking that time for yourself. It's reasonable, I think, that people who have come to expect a certain level of attention from you and a certain level of willingness to do things from them, when they see that you might not be willing to do those things as more, they feel like the things that they were receiving before is kind of threatened and feel like they are losing something in you gaining and that self reflection or self care. So I also see it kind of at that personal level without, on top of kind of the socio-political climate.
Well said. Nick?
Yeah, I see it also as a way to like invite empathy, to train someone to be more empathetic, which in the long run would make them more compassionate and kindness. I mean, empathy is one of the kind of foundational pillars to that. So the idea that like recognizing like what everyone's been touching on is like things you don't see. So recognizing like there's always a cost. I mean, I think about like just my upbringing, which was pretty privileged for a Latino, and a lot of that came at the cost of other things. I mean, for my dad to be part of like the Pedro Pan program and come over because he's Cuban, had more preferential treatment than other Latinos that were trying to get in at the time, which afforded him, these privileges, and then of course mixed with hard work allowed me to go to college. Like, I mean, yeah, there's a mix of like, it wasn't all like it all didn't just happen, but there were doors that were more open to me, I think, than others. And I think that's like maybe the train of thought trying to get to is recognizing that like every privilege we have, whether we wanted it or not, comes at the cost of something, right? And so to recognize that there's a cost would just make us, I think, more empathetic in general, and then through extension make us more compassionate and kinder. So being able, yeah, I mean, I think that's particularly helpful because we have such a, I don't even know if I can say the word diverse, varied. They made me change my syllabus. So varied populations, right?
Okay, Brian.
I'm think of I guess I wanted to chime in about how I think of hierarchy is I mean, there does need to be a hierarchy around here. There is a hierarchy. There are, I mean, we've got the president, the vice presidents, the deans, the department heads, and they all have responsibilities. And I tend to, those are roles. The way I tend to think of it is those are roles that come with responsibilities. And, but I also think that we need to be, that doesn't make some people better than others necessarily, or I don't really, um, I mean, people can get up into power and kind of be snooty or whatever and be abusive and so forth, but also they're human beings with needs as well. And frequently they need for us to be obedient and to do our jobs. And we need to be kind both ways, up and down the hierarchy. So let's stop with that.
Tracy.
Kind of going to what you were saying, Brian, I used to do a lot of organizational auditing, and often I would find as a problem holding people accountable and being fair when they held people accountable. And so when you talk about, all the different roles that makes up this huge ecosystem of our college and being kind, there's accountability where I don't really see this for the most part in the college, but I've heard rumors of accountability being really harsh and maybe not fair. But for the most part, I've experienced myself of it being extremely fair. And if nothing else, sometimes I wonder about the accountability that people aren't holding some people to. But I think that's kind of how are we kind and understanding our accountability. And I talk to my students about this too. When are you brave enough to raise your hand and say, I need help, or I'm struggling with this, or I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do? And maybe that's something I don't see, in our role or org chart, with who's got responsibilities and the kindness back and forth, to be kind enough to yourself to say, I need help.
I skipped a couple of, okay, Duna.
I just I would like to just Tracy's just mention about the fair, and I've read a lot of story of the student, especially I'm involved in the portfolio, and every student story and the struggle is very different when I read their story. And so fair does not mean is I've learned from this book, fair does not mean equal. Um, they mean equal means giving each one what they need. So I've just I've learned just here for the fair means.
Lamisha.
Yeah, I think I was just gonna piggyback off Duna and what Tracy, talked about as far as the um balance, and Brian about the accountability, and then kindness going up and down. um I believe that we all can, treat people with grace. And I think even, in our decision making, because fair can be different depending on, it's subjective. So depending on who it is, depends on, what's fair to one person may not be fair to another. But, just looking at every situation, I think with grace and with kindness in your heart, and not trying to um, be harsh. And oftentimes rules, when I hear leaders say, um, they're not doing this or they're not doing that, or I want to implement this policy. And you're just like, is it, one person doing that, or is it 100 people doing that? Like, what are we talking about here? And do you have a relationship? Rules without relationship equals rebellion, no matter in what organization that you're in. And I think as you establish kindness and establish grace with people, you're building relationships. And oftentimes, when you don't show kindness, or people don't see you as being kind, or don't see you as providing grace, that is where you get the pushback for the most part, because um, people want to be treated with kindness. And oftentimes, if you're treating people with kindness and with grace and being empathetic, um, people will treat you the same way. There are some people that will just treat you mean just to be mean, because they're just mean-hearted people. But the majority of people are not mean-hearted. Most of people want to do a great job. They want to perform well. They want to fit in. That's just it's human nature, to want to be part of a team, to want to excel. But sometimes it's the leaders that may keep people from establishing what they need to being great on that team. So sometimes, I guess I'm part of the leadership team too. We can establish more kindness. We can extend more grace. We can be empathetic when people come to us, or feel open to come to us and communicate with us and provide a relationship. And that's number one. That's important. If you ask anyone who I work with, that's the most important. I want to know how your kids doing, your dog doing. I want to know how your parents are doing. Um, I want to know that first. Let's talk about you first. Let's talk about how you're treating yourself. Are you kind? Are you being kind to yourself? What are you doing? And that's most important. And then we can talk about this work
All right.
stuff. But I try to build relationship first.
I
And
skipped
I
a
think,
couple of, go ahead.
go
Sorry.
ahead. Yes, go ahead. I'm finished.
I skipped a couple of slides ahead because I think that we were starting to hone in on this. Couple of quotes about self-care. We can't be kind to each other until we're kind to ourselves. And the next one is educators emphasize that self-care for teachers is crucial, as seen in this quote. The trick to having happy students is to first be happy yourself. And self-care is not selfish, it's an essential component of prevention of distress, burnout, and impairment. Other educators stress that treating oneself with kindness is vital for a teacher's well-being and professional identity, stating that teachers should give yourself credit for how far you've come. I know you're out there, and talk to yourself like you would someone you love. So no matter whether we're dealing with imposter syndrome or I'm not doing enough, or on page 25, after the after the social identity reflection, it gives three things. A couple of them are, I don't know enough about the subject, and I don't know enough about teaching. But sometimes we really need to think back, how far have we come? What have we done, rather than being on that hamster wheel? So, what do you think about these quotes? We can't, and Clamisha, I think you just said something about some people are just mean. Maybe they don't like themselves. Maybe they're not treating themselves well.
And that's true. I really do feel like when I meet people who are, like that, which is very few, I don't meet many people like that, but not few, they're dealing with things just like our students are. They're dealing with life, and life is taking control over, them. They have outside factors that's going on, and most of the time it is personal, and it doesn't have anything to do with you, but you just happen to be the person that's there that day. And
Right.
so oftentimes they are dealing with external factors and not able to deal with it within themselves. And so yes, I do believe that that's what's going on. And so we have to give grace to them too, and be
Mhm.
nice and kind as well, and finding out, hey, what's going on? What can I do to help you? How can I help you be successful?
Right. And the last book we did, and this one have helped me on the freeway, because when people are running me down, or driving, the first thing that comes into my mind now that I've practiced mindset and have looked at this is, they might have a kid that needs to be picked up. You know what I mean? It's not immediately about they just cut me off or they're whatever. It's like, oh, they probably, something's burning, or it's got to become about other folk, I think. So I have three more slides, and I hope we're at quarter tail, so I'm going to skip through these. This is a wrap up and discussion questions about the introduction, and then there are some wrap up and discussion questions about chapter 1. So I'm going to read these. You can answer any one of them that you want. Um, this is from the introduction, Reimagining the Academy. Denial argues that academia has historically privileged rigor and suspicion over compassion and justice. In what ways have you seen this dynamic play out in your own institution or classroom? The next question, the introduction highlights how ableism and racism are baked into academia. How do these systemic issues affect both students and faculty in your context? Denial asks, why not be kind? What are some barriers, personal, institutional, or cultural, that make kindness difficult to practice in higher ed? And then last question, how might a shift toward kindness change the way faculty and staff relate to students and to each other? Any one of those you want to tackle? I know that's a lot. Or we can move on to chapter 1 questions. Dr. Mulligan. You're muted. No candy.
You muted.
You're muted. I can't hear you. What's happening? Is she putting in chat? Oh,
Okay.
Comisha, you know what she was going to say?
Let's see here. I was just looking at the questions, and I'm probably more of a why not be kind,
Right.
in all that you do. And I think it goes back to just your internal, the way you feel about yourself and the way you look at the glass. Is the glass half empty or is it half full? And so I'm more of a why not be kind. I'm gonna choose that in anything that I do if I show up. And if I'm not gonna be kind that day, I just stay in the bed. That's kind of how I would rather do. But I would, this may be something that we need to carry for as our organization. They used to be like, what would I forgot you can't use Christianity in the workplace, but you can ask yourself, why not be kind? And that could be, keep you going through the day. Is that kind? Is what I said was kind? My actions, were they kind? Constantly reflecting throughout the day. And I think if we all begin to self-reflect, daily, not just in our professional lives, but our personal lives, and see if we see a difference in our day to day, and just constantly ask ourselves, what's that kind? you know how can I show kindness differently?
Okay. Brian, before we get to you, I'm going to read what Dr. Mulligan put, if I can, if I may.
Okay, please.
The tenure process generally does not encourage kindness historically in higher education and is often a barrier to kindness being appreciated. Faculty are encouraged to be tough for tenure. Service isn't rewarded as high as other activities, so faculty might feel they cannot be kind to themselves or others because it's not rewarded. Interesting. Thank you for that, Dr. Mulligan. Dr. Hale?
Well, I think what I've got to say kind of adds into that. There's that old song, cruel to be kind in the right measure. Cruel to be kind, it's a very good sign. That sort of, I mean, the whole point of rigor is asking you to be your best self. And then what is kindness to others, but presenting your best self to others? Um, on the one, I mean, we can talk about self-care, and I think there's definitely something to be said for that. We need to be healthy and sane and in order to be functioning at our best. On the other hand, we don't need to be self-indulgent and go too far, and that's kind of what I think people can be in authority, especially need to get the job done, right? Can be afraid of is that we're just indulge we have people indulging themselves rather than because again the kindness goes both ways. It goes up and down. If the leave form needs to be filled out, the kind thing for me to do is to fill out the leave form and submit it. That's not the kind thing isn't for me to think of myself first and, oh, I can't possibly take the problem. I feel so tired and stressed out to submit the leave form. Oh, wouldn't that be terrible? Right? I mean, there's right. So there's a balance here, I think.
True. Okay, these are the wrap up and discussion questions from chapter 1. And we've hinted at this when we have used the word reflection. Denial insists that we cannot be good teachers and live unexamined lives. What does self-examination or reflection look like for you as an educator, and how might it impact your teaching? The chapter discusses the importance of self-care and setting boundaries. What boundaries have you set or would you like to set to protect your well-being, and how do these affect your work with students? Denial encourages faculty to reflect on their own identities, privileges, and experiences of oppression. How do your social identities shape your interactions with students and colleagues? The chapter includes a social identity reflection chart. How might using such a tool help faculty better understand their own positionality and its impact on classroom dynamics? And then the last question, denial frames kindness as a discipline and a practice, not just a feeling. What are some concrete ways you could practice kindness towards yourself in your professional life? And I'll leave this up until the last 5 minutes, and then I'll put up a chart that I think will be useful for everybody. Josh Tucker? Josh?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself. The number one thing that I was thinking about was how many people have their Outlook on their smartphones that they carry with them all the time. That's the one that hit me, Brian. Like, um, when that bullet point came up in the book, and I was thinking, oh no, it's me. Like, mine's on all the time, and which makes me feel like I'm on all the time, and I don't know if that's a good thing, you know?
It might be person dependent. You know, we set our own boundaries. If it doesn't bother you. Sheena.
That was one thing that I thought, why not be kind? Like Plamisha said, all that. I agree so much with that. Even um, in this book, she states about how you would rather take the risk with being kind because there are some people that take advantage because some of the other, I'm still new. This is only my second year. I'm in nursing, so I have no formal education either. Um, but I've been a nurse a long time, and then now I'm teaching, and I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I don't know nothing about nothing. So some of the others, they're like, well, you do too much, and you're offering yourself too much. You're going to burn out, and you're being too nice, and they're going to take advantage of you. And I feel like hopefully that less people are taking advantage and more are just needing more help. Um, but I do have to learn how to set boundaries, but I don't want to set boundaries. I want to set boundaries for my own self-care, but I would still rather would take the risk and do more for the students and try to be kind, even if there are those few that might take advantage.
So when they said that, they were talking more about the students than your peers or faculty.
Right, yes.
Okay.
That if I'm offering too much assistance to the students, that they'll take advantage or not um, um, push themselves hard enough. So,
Okay. Somebody is a note from Center for Teaching and Learning. My outlook is set on focus mode and doesn't disturb me when I'm off the clock. I've learned after my previous job that I need to stop looking at work all the time. So, and then here's some self-care for educators. And Sheena, I thought about you at the last one, the circle slash. Treat yourself when you need it. Remember to start fresh every day. Connect with uplifting colleagues, which reminded me of something Clomisha said earlier. Do physical activities. Take a walk. We have a lovely river just outside. You can walk, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Take a break when you need one. You probably have heard of the Pomodoro technique, most of you, especially you business folk. Use positive self-talk. Go for a walk or spend time outside. Read a good book, nonfiction, non-academic. Plan an activity to look forward to. Spend time with friends and family. Leave work at school for the night or weekend. Spend less time on social media. Bring healthy snacks and meals. And be comfortable saying no to more obligations. Are there any not on there that anybody engage in that they can or would like to share for the last minute or two? I don't want to take more of your time. There's a lot. There's a lot here, obviously, and we actually cover 2 chapters next time. So, anybody else as we wrap up?
So I would say to add to that list, what helps people is to travel. We get
Okay.
plenty of time as educators with their time versus people that's in corporate America. We get more time than people in corporate America. So we as educators should use more time traveling and seeking new experiences. And so when we come back to work from our breaks, we should be able to share with our colleagues pictures and just all the greatness that we have done over that time. And so we should utilize time to travel and create new experiences.
Chris Willis offers would be good for more folks to use schedule send for the next day rather than late night emails. I think I've done that. Anything else? Anyone else?
He's talking about me. I work all night, all morning. I don't know
Okay.
when to stop.
Well, all right. That is all for today. That has been a very robust and a very enlightening conversation. I appreciate all of you. Somebody just got a book. I had one slid under my door as well, even though I had one. Thank you. So someone will probably be bringing those around the rest of the day. So as we wrap, be kind to yourself. All right. Thanks and have a great semester. And I'll see you next Monday. Au revoir. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.